Hello, and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video, we are going to start looking at the Onslaught block theme decks. So let's get started by looking at Bait and Switch, which is a blue and black deck. Let's look at the deck list. So we have 24 creatures, 9 instants, 2 sorceries, 1 enchantment, 24 lands, mana curve off to the side there. Let's get looking at this. So Onslaught block. So the gimmick of this block is a tribal theme. So creature type really matters. So I guess we've had Invasion where color matters. We've had Odyssey where graveyard matters. So now we have creature type matters. I think this is the first proper tribal block really, or at least one that the first one that does it really properly, that really leans into it. As an actual set-wide gimmick. So yeah, this kind of lays the foundations for tribal blocks that we'll see coming up in future videos. Like Lorwyn or I can't. I say that and I immediately can't think of another one. Innistrad, I guess, is a tribal. Anyway, we'll stop talking about other sets. Let's talk about this set. So. This is kind of like the core of the deck, is these mistform creatures. So as is in most blocks, every color had their own kind of iconic tribe. So blue had wizards, but it also had all these mistform creatures, which are illusions. So, but interestingly, there aren't many effects that specifically reference illusions. Instead, all the mistform creatures had the ability to change their creature type to become something else, which which means they could benefit from different tribal effects and stuff. They were kind of like, I guess, the original changelings. In fact, a rare that would come later, Mistform Ultimus, is like basically the first changeling because it has every creature type, which used to be like this huge impressive thing, and then it just became a keyword, and then it's like, oh, Mistform Ultimus isn't really that exciting anymore. Anyway, so we have 3 Mistform Dreamers. It's a 2/1 flyer for 3. Has, and like most of the Mistforms, it has pay 1 to make its type the creature type your choice to land to turn. Mistform Shrieker is 5 mana 3/3 flyer with the Mistform ability. It has Morph, so this is the block where Morph first appears. It doesn't show up a lot in these Onslaught decks, but yeah, when we hit Legions, it will become a bit more prominent. In fact, there's a whole deck which is all about Morph, so we get to talk about Morph a lot more there. But Morph, if you don't know, because it's been in a few sets, and I think people like it. Basically, you can play the creature face down as a 2/2 creature with like no color or types for 3, and then you can turn it face up at any time by paying its morph cost, which is just creates these kind of like mind games and stuff. It's a way of getting kind of a big expensive creature down on the table sooner. Yeah, Morph's like really fun, I think. We have a Mistform Mutant, which is just a big 6 mana creature. So this one has the ability where it can change any creature's type. So it doesn't have to be its own. Can change it for another creature, which is good because it can switch off. So if you're playing against like an elf deck, you can use it on an elf to make that elf stop getting the elf tribal bonuses, I guess. Mistform Stalker is a 1/1. It can change its type, and it has an ability you can pay 4 to give it +2/+2 in flying till end of turn, so it's like kind of a good late game mana sink just to buff it up. And Mistform Wall, 4 of these. So 3 mana for a 1/4 defender. So this is back when the creature type Wall actually had a had rules baggage attached to it. So defender's ability didn't exist; it was just Wall's can't attack. The idea was that you could pay 1, change its type to something other than Wall, and then it could attack. If you wanted to attack with a 1/4. But yeah, now I think the Oracle text is like it has Defender as long as it's a Wall, so it still works. Anyway, so that's like the bulk of the deck, is these misformed creatures that get to change their types. So then we have some effects that sort of care about specific creature types. So Information Dealer is 2 mana for a 1/1. You can tap it, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of wizards in play. So it's not just wizards you control. It is wizards in play, so that is a thing we'll see as well. Like a lot of these tribal effects are usually symmetrical; they affect the whole board, which can be good, it can be bad. But yeah, overall, like if you're aware of it, then you play around it. If there was a mirror match, then whatever, it happens. So this is okay, I guess. It's kind of like a very it's not quite scry, is it? But it is going to rearrange the top cards of your library, so you can get stuff to the top quicker. It's okay. It's okay for like ability. It requires a tap as well, which is like fine. So for image crafters, so 1/1 wizard for 1. And he's kind of like the mist forms as well. He can change creature type. Choose a creature type other than legend or wall. Because again, legend used to be a creature type. It wasn't a super type like it is now. Like, 'cause normally you have legendary creature, whatever. Whereas back then it was creature like wizard legend or something. So yeah, again, it was a case where a creature type had rules text attached to it. But yeah, he can change creatures types until end turn, which is pretty good. Works for you and against opponents as well. Switches off their tribal effects. And a single Ghost Helm Courier, so 3 mana for a 2/1. You can choose not to untap him during your untap step. 2 cards to blue and tap. As long as he remains tapped, target wizard gets +2/+2 and Shroud. So what's interesting is the creature only has to be a wizard at the time you use the ability. So like with the mist forms and stuff, as long as they're a wizard when you use that ability, that's fine. I think paying 3 mana for +2/+2 and Shroud is pretty good. I would say like you don't even necessarily need to keep him tapped. I think just doing it as a combat trick is perfectly fine. But it kind of works. It's kind of like proto equipment, right? That he stays tapped down to give something else a bonus. But +2/+2 and Shroud is a pretty good upside. So we have a bunch of a bunch of black creatures here. So we have 2 bonuses, which is a 1/1. It has morph as well. You can pay 1 cost on black to regenerate a zombie. Again, that works with your mist forms and image crafters. You can turn your own creatures into zombies, so you can regenerate them. Cabal Slaver is a 3 mana 2/1. Whenever a goblin deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. So again, turn your mist forms into goblins. Obviously don't play this if you're playing against a goblin deck, but if a goblin does show up, at least you could use like image crafter to stop it being a goblin, I suppose. So you have a single fallen cleric, 5 mana for 4/2. Again, has morph, has protection from clerics. Again, use imagecraft to turn creatures into clerics, so they either can't block this guy, or he can block them and not take any damage, or can't be targeted by them. And then Fright Shroud Courier, who is the black courier, so there is a cycle of these, like basically 1 for each kind of main creature type. So he's the zombie one, and he gives a zombie +2/+2 and fear as long as he's tapped. Not quite as good as the Ghost Helm, I think. I think the Shroud is better than fear, but I mean, at the end of the day, fear is like an evasion ability. So, but again, turn a mist form into a zombie, and then they can get the buff, which is, I think, pretty good. So we have some blue spells here. So one of the rares of the deck is Peer Pressure, which I really like, actually. I think this is a fun design. So it's 4 mana for a sorcery. You choose a creature type, and if you have more creatures of that type than every player, you gain control of all creatures of that type, which goes really, really well with all these mist forms and stuff. Like you turn all your mist forms into, I don't know, say your opponent's playing soldiers or clerics, whatever. Turn all your mist forms into like soldiers or clerics. And then, like, if you've got more creatures than play Peer Pressure, it's like, oh, soldiers, I've got more soldiers than you because of my mist forms or my creature type changing. Great, I've got all your stuff now. I think it's just a really like fun ability. It doesn't end at end of turn. It is indefinite control. I just think that's like a really fun design. Has a few hoops to jump through, but could potentially be like a really big swingy play. A single Ixodor's Will, 3 mana, counter target spell unless its controller pays 2 for every wizard in play. Again, it does count all wizards. you don't have I was going to say you don't have too many wizards in this deck, but again, you got mist forms, which can be any creature you need them to be, I suppose. This is all right. Ideally, you want probably at least 2 wizards out for this to be worth it. Otherwise, it's just too expensive. And obviously, it's useless if you've got no wizards at all, which is kind of a weakness of a counter spell that, like, it does. That it can potentially just be a dead card, like it's relying on something being in play. A single Mage's Guile. I think this is quite nice. It's 2 mana, instant. Target creature gets shrouded until end turn. It has cycling for 1 blue, so cycling is back from Urza's block, which is really good. When I think about it, actually, Onslaught block is like a really just has a lot of my mechanics I really like. It has cycling, it has morph, it has tribal elements. Like, and looking at it now, I like, I realised that wow, I really like Onslaught block. But yeah, I think Major Guile is a perfectly good little combat trick to get shroud until end turn. Fine. And if you wanted to, you could cycle it to draw a card. And a single trickery charm. So charms are in as well, which is another thing I really like. I really like charms. So 1 blue mana for an instant. Choose one. Target creature gets flying to end turn, or target creature's type becomes the creature type of your choice to end turn. Or you look at the top 4 cards of your library, put them back in the order. All those effects I think are absolutely fine for a single blue banner. So putting all 3 options on a single card I think is really good. So the other rare of the deck is Endemic Plague. This is a really fun design as well, actually, that cares about creature types. So 4 mana sorcery, as an additional cost to play Endemic Plague, sacrifice a creature, destroy all creatures that share a creature type with the sacrificed creature. They can't be regenerated. So again, you get a mist form, you turn it into a certain creature type that you're playing against, you sacrifice it to Endemic Plague, hopefully wipe out your opponent's board. What is nice actually is that this is like a black removal card. It doesn't have non-black on it, so it can actually destroy black creatures, which I think is really fun. Again, I just think that's just like a really fun design. Again, could be this like potentially like one-sided swingy board wipe for only 4 mana. We have a single Crown of Suspicion. So it's a black aura, 2 mana, enchanted creature gets +2/+1, +2/-1 even. And you can sacrifice Crown of Suspicion to give enchanted creature and other creatures that share a creature type with it +2/-1 until end of turn. So there's a whole cycle of these crowns where you put them on a creature, you sacrifice them to give basically everything the same bonus until end of turn. I think they're pretty cool. This one I think is somewhere in the middle, because I think all the other crowns do show up in other decks. This one's okay. Has the added effect that you can use it as a we see these kind of effects in black a lot, where it gives a power boost but a toughness decrease. So it does mean it can be used as a combat trick on your side, or it can be used as kind of like wonky removal. And in this case, this can be again, it can be both. Again, really good potential here to just do a really big mass pump. If you put it on a mistform creature and you say you have your mistforms, turn them all the same creature type. Actually, you don't need to do that because they're already illusions. Just giving your whole board +2/+1, +2/-1 even is pretty good. Or you put it on opponent's creatures and potentially wipe out like goblins or elves or something with only like very low toughness. I like Crown of Suspicion. A single Feeding Frenzy, target creature gets -X/-X till end turn, where X is the number of zombies in play. You don't have a huge number of zombies, but again, you have mist forms. I think this is perfectly fine. Again, probably want this to be at least X to be at least 3 to make it worthwhile, I think. Anything less than 3, it's too expensive, I think, for what it does. And then a single Misery Charm. This is like the weirdest inclusion, I think. So it's another charm, so you choose to either destroy a cleric, which works with Image Crafter, turn an enemy into a cleric, and then you've got a 1 mana kill spell. Return a cleric from your graveyard to your hand. That is a little trickier to work in this deck, just because you haven't got ways of changing creature types in graveyards. You've got a few clerics in here, I think, but not enough to make this worth as a reanimation spell. Or target player loses 2 life, which is like kind of boring, but it's fine if you can't do the other 2, I guess. A single Smother, 2 mana, instant, destroy target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less. It can't be regenerated. Fine, kills small things. And SWAT also kills small things, 3 mana, destroy target creature with power 2 or less, and it has cycling. Just in case there's no targets for it, you can just cycle it away and draw a card. I love that art of Phage just giving this guy an absolute like pimp slap. It's great. And then we have cycling lands back. So these, in my opinion, are an improvement over the ones from Urza's block, because they are functionally, they're almost basically identical. They come and play tapped, and they tap to give you 1 mana of a single color, but whereas the Urza's lands needed 2 colorless mana to cycle, these only need 1 mana of a color to cycle, which I think makes them slightly better. But yeah, 2 copies of each of those. So what could have been? So the card selection in this deck, I think, is all right. There's a few things I think could have made it maybe just a tiny bit better. Effetto dredging could have been fun. Be warned, I like this card's going to show up a lot in these what could have beens because it's not in any deck, which is weird because there's so many decks where it fits really well. But anyway, Effetto dredging lets you get 3 creature cards of a single type back into your hand, which works really well with your mist forms. Callous Suppressor could have worked, I think, as one of the rares. I like the rares that are in here, but like I wouldn't have been too upset to seeing this guy. It's weird he's a Cephalid. I think he's the only Cephalid in the whole block. But I think his effect's really fun. You can choose not to untap him. When he comes to play, an opponent chooses a creature type, and then you gain control of a creature that has a type that isn't of the type your opponent chose. So if they're playing only a single creature type, they'll just obviously choose their own type, and then you can't really do anything. But again, with Image Crafter and stuff like that, changing creature types, it could have been fun. Crown of Ascension, the blue crown gives flying. You can sacrifice to give the creature and all creatures that share a type with it flying. Fine, just an evasion ability, potentially board wide. And then Choking Tethers. I just thought this would be a fun spell just because like it's 4 mana to tap down 4 creatures at instant speed, which is good. Messes up combat, lets you get creatures get through, and you can cycle it just to draw a card and still get to tap something down, which is really nice. I really like these. There's quite a few of these spells where you still get an effect after you cycle them, in addition to drawing a card. Like 2 mana to draw a card and tap a creature down is not awful, honestly. So in summary, I quite like this one actually. I like the fun little theme of kind of like messing around with creature types. It feels like you've got this real like toolbox of like all these different tribal effects that you wouldn't necessarily maybe all have in a single deck, but because you've got the mistform creatures who can change their type, you can like pick and choose which ones you get affected by. I think it's just like a really fun theme. Don't know how it would play. But it looks fun, and I think that's what's more important to me is that it looks fun. It has a fun gimmick to it. But yeah, what did you think? Like, what do you think after looking at it? Did you have this deck? Did you play it? Did you make any changes to it? Stick a comment below, and we'll have a talk about it. But yeah, I'll be back next time, and I'm going to talk about another Onslaught theme deck. But until then, thank you for watching, listening, and have a great day.